Welcome to Miss Martin Muses and another edition of Catholicplaining. Prepare yourself, you are about to be Catholicplained. What is Catholicplaining? Well, it's where me, a practicing Catholic, will tell you what Catholicism really is or what the Catholic Church really teaches about certain things. I do not ask that anybody believe necessarily. This is not one of an evangelistic type of stream. It is just explaining from the perspective of somebody who does know about it. So just to give me a little bit of my background, or rather qualifications, I am a convert. Usually a good qualifications for good Catholic explainers are if you're a convert or a revert or a practicing cradle Catholic. The ones that probably aren't good to listen to is I'm a good Catholic, but that's people like Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden. And then, of course, there's raised Catholic. Yeah. Nothing against certain people. I'm not doing any judgment, but those usually are not good sources. And I wanted to bring up the I'm a good Catholic because that is what brings us to our topic today. Also, an aside, a good Catholic or a practicing Catholic will not use the term I'm a good Catholic. So that's how you know you're dealing with something. I'm a good Catholic, but Nancy Pelosi. And this is why it's just not a good idea. On so many levels, she is not a good representative. And if anyone wants to say, why are you judging this woman? Judge not lest you be judged. I'm not judging her soul. I'm not judging her state before God. But she is a public figure, and she is the one who has been putting out some very false, misleading, scandalous things. I'm not the one that outed myself. She outed herself. And so that is the premise for Catholicplaining Exorcism today. Why, hello, it is Chris Sant. Hello. Thank you. We're going to talk about exorcism. Isn't that fun? For those that were tuned into my stream yesterday, I had to stay home from Mass because I was sick. But I didn't want to do this live stream because, it's Jesus's day. You don't want to give any attention to Satan. And to be honest, neither do I. And I think that maybe if you see, as I walk through what exorcism is and what it isn't, why a lot of people's popular perception, movies don't help one little bit towards this. It's really not that exciting. It's actually rather boring. But let's bring us to what started all this fun. I'm minding my own business, living my life, petting my cats, playing video games, when all of a sudden I see Nancy Pelosi had an exorcism at her house. Really? First of all, why is that public knowledge? So I looked into it. This is the relevant article. If you're wondering why I choose to use quotes and sources, it's because sometimes Google will dox you. I've done this before. It's like, okay, I'll share this article, and next thing you know, my hometown, my place, my first full name, and everything but my social security number pops up. So that's not a good idea. Dreaming Tabitha is here. Hello, we're going to Catholicplaining Exorcism. Hello. If you have any questions about exorcism, please do so. And for those that are popping in, I am not here to change anyone's mind. This is not a change your mind segment. This is an explanation. It is Catholicplaining. And I hope I will do so without sounding condescending. I do work on that all the time, or sometimes people think I come across as being condescending because I am an academic on this matter, not exorcism, though I'll get to you a little bit more on that. I am an amateur theologian. I always want to say that. I am not an official theologian at all. I do not have those credentials. So this is a quote from the New York Times, of all places, talking about the incident with the hammer. Before I go on, thank you. The perfect topic to go begin my day with. Yes. You see, there you go. Let's exercise our brains. You can see why I didn't want to do this yesterday. You don't trump Jesus. Jesus, yesterday is Jesus' day. Mondays suck anyway, so why not talk about the devil? The situation is very weird. What we do know as a fact is Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's husband, got hit with a hammer. That's the truth. And he was very hurt, and we prayed for his recovery because no one, getting your skull crushed in, that sucks. Everyone is it. So this first one is as quoted in the New York Times. I think that really broke her, referring to the hammer to the head. Over Thanksgiving, she had priests coming, trying to have an exorcism of the house and having prayer services. Let's just pause here. She had priests coming over to her house. Yeah, that happens. Trying to have an exorcism of the house. What? What? And having prayer services. Okay, prayer services are cool. That's normal. All right, we can do prayer services. The whole exorcism of the house is so problematic. That's what we're going to get into. But I want to continue, though, with how the priest at the local parish responded. You guys are cracking me up. This is also why I didn't want to do this yesterday. I knew it was going to get wild. Father Arturo Albano, the pastor of St. Vincent de Paul Church, Pelosi's local parish, insisted his staff was not involved in such a rite. As far as I know, no exorcism or priest services were performed at her home, Albano told the Post. In Catholicese, that translates to, oh my, no, not happen, didn't happen, oh my gosh, shut up, didn't happen, not even close, oh, go away, I swear, this is nuts, no exorcism, please don't fire me, Archbishop. Because as the local priest or any priest that might have attempted something like that, his butt is fired. Fired. Several reasons. The easiest one is no priest is allowed to do an exorcism without the express and explicit permission of the presiding bishop, the local bishop, the ordinary of the diocese. Permission for such is rarely given for good reasons. Also, before an exorcism can take place, there is extensive research, which involves doctors and psychiatrists. Deliberately, the church will choose ones that are not religious, so that they are objective, psychological testing and all that. And just on the surface, looking at what happened, an exorcism would have been completely denied because there was some duress and psychological stuff going on. They're like, hey, there's something going on, but it's not the devil. Also, an exorcism of a house. Exorcisms of houses. Sorry to break the news here. A house isn't a living being, so there's nothing to exorcise. A demon doesn't go into your doorway. Okay. Now, that's different from an infestation. Somehow I think, though, that Nancy Pelosi was not referring to that. Okay. Oh, Dreaming Tabitha says, you don't trump Jesus. I love it. Yes, exactly. Precisely. He wins. I used to play a game of that with my students about who trumps who. Chrisette says, I saw the headline and just assumed they wanted to use the bigger buzzword exorcism when she had her house blessed. Yes, stay tuned. Stay tuned. The daughter and Pelosi, or what was told to the New York Times, the wording she used shows they don't know what they're talking about. I hesitate to use the word bad Catholic. I will just say not informed. Because if you were a practicing Catholic, if you went to Mass every Sunday, if you read the Bible, the Catechism, the writings of the saints, all that, you would never, ever even think about confusing the two, even if you were trying to explain it to people. Luffy's God says it broke him. It did break him. Yes. Saberfield, Laugh Aloud is going to stream on Twitch with benediction prayers in the background. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Did she maybe call that little midget from Poltergeist? Well, you know what? Let's look at this next sentence. But Pelosi may have gone outside her local church hierarchy for holy help. There you go. There you go. Let me also say no Catholic would ever go outside their church hierarchy. Okay. That's one of the reasons we're Catholic. If you don't like your church hierarchy, if you don't like the idea of you've got the priest and then above him the bishop and above him the pope, well, find yourself another church. There's plenty of them. Oh, I'm a bad girl. I forgot deacon. Deacon, priest. I digress. And if you go, let's just say she went to her local authorities. He went to, and they were like, nope. That's the end of the story. A good Catholic doesn't go outside. It's like, I'm just going to go and find somebody else. And I'll say it again, no priest in their right mind would do this. Or no priest in good standing with the church would do this. There's lots of ex-priests out there. Or a lot of people that call themselves priests that aren't necessarily priests. Sure, says Dread Saberfill. Blame the little girl in Poltergeist. I think he's talking about the psychic lady. But it is interesting that the priest, Father Albano says, or priest services were performed at her home. So that would include a house blessing. However, that does not preclude that a house blessing happened. When I had my house blessed way back when, it's usually normal to do that when you buy a new house. I was having a party, and it so happened that, a friend who's a priest showed up. As you start to get older, your friends become priests. It's really depressing that you're that old. It takes a long time to become a priest. And while he was here, I was like, Father, would you mind going ahead and just blessing my house? And he was like, sure, no problem. You don't need any permission to do that. Boom. He did it. So it is possible that maybe a friend was over, someone's cousins, brothers, uncles, nephew's former roommate was over for Thanksgiving, and that happened. We're going to go into what a blessing of a house is in a bit. Lay people, though, can bless the house. I want to make that clear. You can call upon the name of Jesus anytime you want. Nothing's stopping you. We also use sacramentals. I have tons of sacramentals. Sacramental, not a sacrament, are things that remind us of our baptism, our profession as a follower of Jesus, renewing your baptism vows of salvation, all that good stuff. Holy water is probably the most common. It's also can be utilized in an exorcism, but I do it all the time. Just spray that holy water, no problem. Blessed salt is one of them. Blessed chalk. Blessed candles. Please understand that while these can act on their own as good and holy things, for the most part, it is just an expression of your faith. It doesn't act ex operato. And so I put my source here. A little bit of a comment on Nancy Pelosi's status in the church. Her local bishop has spoken about it, and you go by your local bishop. Even the Pope needs to honor that. In an extraordinary circumstance, he may override the bishop. I know of a situation where something like that happened, but not in a case of yay abortion. All right. And those in the Vatican who have caused scandal, and some of the other archbishops and cardinals too, they're going to answer for that. But Nancy should be going by the decision of her bishop, if she's a good Catholic, that she says she is. All right, let's go on to what is an exorcism. There's my source there at the bottom. Boom. This is from Catholic Answers. Catholic Answers, they actually Catholicplaining for a living. They have some very solid material. If you ever want to get an answer, a Catholic answer, you will get it there. Note, it is an apologetics website, so they are not going to be gentle. An apologetic is the strongest possible defense of a position, usually of a Christian doctrine. So you're going to get that. If you want something a little more gentle, the Catechism is a good place. Question. Is involuntary demonic possession true? And a matter of official church doctrine we must assent to. Two parts of this question I think is good. First of all, is it real? What's the answer? The fact that demonic possession is possible is taken for granted by the Gospels. Luke 8, chapter 2, 11-24. Jesus is described as expelling demons from individuals, Matthew 4:23, 8:16, 9:32, 12:22, and conversing with the demons in possessed individuals, Matthew 8:31-21, Mark 5:9. The Gospels also show Jesus passing on that authority to the apostles and the deacons. So yes, is it true? It's in the Bible. That you do have to believe. Part of early Christian apologetics was their claim that Christians could command demons and possessed individuals, but the pagans could not. That's also an example of it was believed in the early church. They were like, man, these Christians going around and Christians saying they can command demons who possess, but the pagans could not because it was done in the name of Jesus. If you really want to read a lot, see Tertullian's Apology. The fact that a ritual of exorcism for possessed persons has consistently been included in the Roman ritual also testifies to the reality of demon possession. Yes, the Roman ritual is still there. It's been revised even. More about that later. Here's the answer to the second part and what is relevant to me and maybe to other Catholics. The church does not require any Catholic to accept that any particular person is actually possessed or any past case was judged correctly. But the church does teach that demonic possession is a real possibility. Good example. Remember that the exorcism movie was based on a real exorcism that happened in the 50s, I believe, or late 40s. I don't have to believe it. I can be the best Catholic on the planet, even though we don't use that term, and say, nope, kid was crazy. They were all crazy. Priests were deluded. They were smoking mushrooms, whatever it is. I don't have to believe it. It is not an article of faith. We're fine. And let's just say that I believe that the bishop who gave permission in that case was totally wrong. Yeah, I can do that. I can completely disagree with the bishop on that matter. Doesn't matter. However, but the church does teach that it is a real possibility. Yes, it is a real possibility. Why do we teach that it's a real possibility? See the first paragraph. Let's see, is anyone? Okay, we're still back to the crazy little girl in Poltergeist. Poor thing. Great tragedy there. I have issues with the movie Exorcist. Perhaps I'll get to that in a minute. What is my next slide? I don't know. That's why I'm here. Oh, Father Vince Lampert, who I may or may not know. Or, no, I don't know him at all. Never heard of him. Never heard of him. This is an exorcist in the Diocese of Indianapolis. In answer to some of these questions, he says, that's why exorcists are trained to be skeptics. I should be the last one to believe that someone is truly up against the forces of evil. The church would want to rule out any other possible explanation. Here in the United States, there's a protocol that we follow. Somebody contacts me. I would want to know if they've had some type of a psychiatric evaluation or if they've had a physical examination by their medical doctor. The church wants experts in the mental health field and also medical doctors to weigh in just so that we can have a clear understanding of what we're dealing with. I have been told by exorcists that their job is consisting mostly of this, just referring people to a psychiatrist. And even if there might be demonic possession, let's just say it is, but the person has a mental illness, that alone will negate permission for an exorcism to happen. Because there is a natural explanation for it. You have to rule out all natural explanations for the behavior that is being manifested. Continuing, the church says that I should reach moral certitude, meaning beyond a doubt that I believe that this person is afflicted by a demon before proceeding with the official rite of the church. Now, medical doctors and mental health professionals are not being asked if they believe someone is possessed or dealing with the demonic. The church herself will make that determination, but the church does want experts in these fields to weigh in on the matter. That's telling you a little bit about the process. This particular priest, as far as I know, has never had an exorcism. It's never gotten that far. Sometimes some cases that he has mentioned, he's just said, look, looks like, you just need to get your your life right. There was a woman whose husband was dead and she thought her house was possessed or something, or spirit was there and it was a demon, all this kind of stuff. And after talking with her, it turns out he was a terrible husband, all these things, and she couldn't forgive him. So there was something else going on. And he's like, you don't need a possession, but what you need to do is to forgive your husband for your sake. Go to confession, get right with God, forgive him, maybe even do whatever it takes to get yourself right and in a better place in your life and with peace. And that was all that needed to happen. In some cases, he said he's gone in, they're like, we think there's a demon possessing our house, and they have all sorts of demonic paraphernalia. And he said, well, let's just start with getting rid of the paraphernalia. If you really don't want a demon in here, that's a start. And amazing what happened. Now, was there really a demon coming? We don't know. Probably their imagination. Your imagination is very much affected by your environment. Let's see. Do I have another slide? I don't know. Oh, I do. All right. So let's go back to the whole Nancy Pelosi thing. Something terrible happened. Her husband got hit by a hammer. That sucks. Now they're saying they had a exorcist come to an exorcism on the house because of that traumatic situation. That's not what an exorcism is for. That's not even expelling demons. Some people say, well, maybe they're just expelling demons. It's like, yeah, that's not demon stuff. All right. Now, were they feeling yucky because something bad happened in their house? Sure. Too bad. It was a terrible situation. We can make all the jokes we want, but he was hammered in the head. That sucks. Nobody wakes up one day and says, I think I'm going to get hit in the hammer. Hit a hammer hit on my head. All right. So let's just say they wanted to have a priest come over and do a blessing. There's many different blessings that priests can choose. Blessing of a new house, all sorts of good stuff. True. I don't know if they do this nowadays, but back in the Middle Ages, often after a wedding, right before the fun time started, the priest would bless the bed and bless the new husband and wife. It was a thing. The movie The Last Duel showed that. It's a very nice little prayer. It's like, yay, they're married and may they all be loving and all this good stuff, whatever. You can even bless a bed. You can bless a car. I get a new car, get a priest to bless it. But there are deliverance prayers. And that includes one. Let's just say something traumatic happened. No matter how you feel about Nancy Pelosi or her husband, that was traumatic. It was bad. So it's very possible that a priest did come and do a deliverance prayer before we. Was I exorcised? No, I'm not a priest. You see, this is why I also didn't want to do it. I can see it. Nancy finds out her husband had gay sex in their house. I would want an exorcism too. Yeah, but not an exorcism. Here's another reason why I got a problem. If they're seeking an exorcism or something external, that's shifting the blame. Listen, if her husband is in the closet and has to get gay prostitutes, you've got a bigger problem. Okay, you got a problem in your marriage. Your husband's got a problem with his identity, all this kind of stuff. Shifting the blame and saying, oh, it was just demons, that's just ridiculous and a very, very old-fashioned attitude to have for someone that's supposed to be so progressive. Yeah, and lay people can do these kind of prayers, but I'll get there in a second. This is only to be said by a priest. And this also has lay participation. Here's an example of a deliverance prayer that the priest might have done. This is an official prayer. Let us pray. God of heaven and earth, God of the angels and archangels, God of the patriarchs and the prophets, God of the apostles and martyrs, God of confessors and virgins, God who have power to bestow life after death and rest after toil. For there is no other God than you, nor there can be another true God beside you, the creator of all things visible and invisible, whose kingdom is without end. We humbly entreat your glorious majesty to deliver us and places by your might from every influence of accursed spirits, from their every evil snare and deception, and to keep us from all harm through Jesus Christ our Lord. And everyone says, Amen. From the snares of the devil, Lord, deliver us, that you help your church to serve you in security of freedom. We beg you to hear us. That you humble the enemies of the Holy Church. We beg you to hear us. And then he might say, may Almighty God bless us and bless you all in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Not an exorcism. Okay? No, it's just a prayer of deliverance. And every Christian can do also prayers of deliverance for themselves within reason. A good example of that is a prayer to St. Michael, the Archangel prayer. I was hanging out with some exorcists in Ireland. There was a convention where they were going over some of the revisions of the liturgy, comparing it to the older one and the translations, etc. And we were chit-chatting. He was like, yeah, as a layperson, it's perfectly acceptable. Same with cleric angel, all that stuff. But don't try anything more. Don't play exorcist. No one should play exorcist. And that's part of the exorcist job. They're there to play exorcist, all right? They're there to deal with this. Because, to be honest, don't you have better things to do with your life? Yes, we do. Christine says, I don't buy that she didn't already know about her husband. She's too much of a busybody. Oh, she knows. She knew. She knew and was probably okay with it. They had an agreement, most likely. It just so happened, from what I can understand, he got a crazy. When, I don't know if it's Grinder. I don't know how you hire a hooker, let alone certain kind of hookers. It's not in my knowledge. Luffy's got, I bet the priest was looking at Paul the whole time he talked. If it happened. It probably did. Probably a priest gave a blessing, but nothing official, and certainly nothing like Sultan Al-Fahim says, yeah, that sounds fun. Yeah. If you're talking about the exorcism thing, yeah, it was. Exorcists are fun from a certain point of view. They're also very boring. I always joke, if you want to figure out who the priest is in your diocese, pardon me, the exorcist, find the most dull priest you know. They want you to be dull. They want you to not be excitable. Because if you're excitable and all that, then you're going to be open to emotions rather than objectivity. And an exorcist have to be objective. This is where I want to judge the movie The Exorcist. Everything about that exorcism was wrong. They're all sitting there going, during it all, and even the old priest is, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. They just kind of go, hum, 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 hum. All right, it's very calm. Also, that priest, even though obviously he was a very good exorcist, what's the priest's name in the movie? I forget his name. He would not have been allowed to perform the exorcism because of his advanced age, but most importantly, he had a heart problem. The dude was taking heart pills. You got to be in good physical health. They can last for several days. It can be exhausting. And most certainly they wouldn't have had that one priest. Was it Father Damien? Was that his name? The young priest? Oh, hell no. You don't have a man, first of all, who's doubting his faith in God, let alone all this other stuff. Also had in a very emotional situation with his mother dying and him feeling guilty about it. So let's just say he was Mr. Exorcist and his mom had just died. He was having issues. He was hitting the bottle. Yeah. They would never, ever allow a priest to do that. And an exorcism, and for the most part, you have to be trained. It takes years to train as an exorcist. They wouldn't just go, okay, here you go. What is possible, and this happened in the exorcism that was inspired the exorcism movie, you can have some support staff, for lack of a better word, where they are just praying while it's happening. It could even be lay people, though they often will not be present during the exorcism. Don't quote me on that, but from what I understand, you can say, hey, we're having an exorcism, pray some prayers, pray some rosaries, read the Bible, whatever it is while we're doing this. And there also will be a priest. And in this case, there was a young priest, a Jesuit, who, I don't know, was obviously having a bad day because he was kind of chosen to say, hey, man, come over here and, pray some rosaries and things while we're doing this. He is the one that gave the testimony of that particular exorcism for a documentary. I think he might have passed away by now, but he was a support priest. And he said, yeah, we went in and he started it. And next thing you know, the crucifix flew across the room. And he even said at the end, says that people don't believe me. Well, then they don't believe me. I says, I know what I saw. That's also a sign of maybe a good sign that it was authentic, because he wasn't all defensive. Usually when someone gets all defensive, you're like, okay, this person's lying, this person's this. But yeah, he's like, this is what it was. It doesn't matter whether anyone believes me or not. Also, he had a good attitude, because you don't want to give much attention to exorcisms, because exorcisms are not very efficacious. Let's look at it from the devil's point of view. He wants people to go to hell. What does he gain by an exorcism? Not a lot. Or his little demons or whatever. Because their free will is not being affected. So what they do when they're possessed, it doesn't do a darn thing. They're not responsible. Now, they may be responsible if they did something to invite the demon in or did some terrible things. That they're responsible for that, but not during exorcism. That it is more in the devil's best interest to be less dramatic, seduce people with money, promises of all sorts of things. And I'm not saying that the devil's going to come and land on your shoulder and tell you these things. But if your goal is to get people to go to hell, you don't want to show your cards. That's the reason why the deadly sins, pride is the biggest of them. Pride leads more people to hell than anything, not being possessed. Sounds fun. Oh, hello, Gravy D. Yes, we're talking about exorcisms. Isn't this fun? And what they're not. So I will be pretty adamant. It wasn't an exorcism. And people like Nancy Pelosi are doing a lot of damage to the church's public relations on so many levels. We as practicing Catholics are also very upset with some in the hierarchy because they're causing scandal. All right, this whole idea that you have to follow the rules, you have to do this and do that. You can't go out and say, yay, abortion, and let's just abort up to all 9 months. You can't do that. But, oh, you're rich, Nancy? You're powerful? You donated a lot of money for whatever reason? You're okay. Same thing with Biden. It's a scandal. One way you can tell the good bishops and priests from the bad ones are who's standing up for the truth no matter the cost. And this whole denying communion to people that do such things, it's a last resort. And it's also for the sake of their soul. Because if you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, if you drink from the chalice in an unworthy manner, you drink death upon yourself, St. Paul says in one of his letters. So we're like, hey, we're doing this for the sake of your soul. And it is not a sin to refrain communion. You do not have to take communion. If you go to Mass, you will often see people not taking communion. It's no big deal. And it doesn't even necessarily mean they're in mortal sin or they have some big thing. It's a preparation. You are required to take communion once a year. Of course, you should take it more frequently. I have had situations where I have chosen not to receive communion, usually while it was in the middle of the school day and I just about wanted to kill somebody, metaphorically, of course, and I just was not in charity. And it says if you're not in charity with your brothers, first make charity with your brothers before you go to the altar. Okay, so I'm just not. Yeah. And what you do is you just place your hands over your heart like a cross. And they know, oh, this person's not going to receive communion. And then the priest will give you a blessing. And if it's a lay person, they'll just maybe make the sign of the cross on your forehead. No big deal. It's not a big deal to not take communion. It's not extraordinary. What is extraordinary is when a bishop has to tell you that because a good Catholic would know you don't do it, okay? But if they have to do it, it's because scandal is being caused. But it's not even excommunication. A lot of people misunderstand that. It's not excommunication. It's a warning. Another example, you're not a Catholic. Yeah, you can go and fully participate in Mass, and you just put your hands over your, and you just receive the blessing. There's a reason we don't receive communion, but that is another Catholicplaining. When I say we, because I was one of those. Okay, so I used to go to Mass all the time, even when I was a kid with my friends, because they were like, "I got to go to Mass. Come with me." It's like, fine. That was in Ireland, so yeah, I'd go and just do that. No big deal. That experience also helped me respect other religions or other denominations. You may have your own personal beliefs, but you got to respect what's going on. What's going on? All right. Like, for example, I'm minding my own business. Let's say I'm going to a Protestant service or something, or a big old wedding. I'm not going to like pull out a rosary bead and start going rosaries, rosaries. That would cause a scandal. Why do that? That'd be a jerk. Lust. Oh, good example, because this would be a case of lust. Often people mistake lust for desire. Desire, good. Lust, bad. Lust is disordered desire for somebody. And yeah, Paul Pelosi, if he's having to see a hooker, that is, under those circumstances, he's got some lust issues. Not the least of which, he made a vow, right? He made a vow he was only going to get it on with his wife. Nancy may need one herself. Oh, yeah. Well, again, we're not talking about exorcisms because that takes away the responsibility. It wasn't me. It was the devil that did it. No, you chose. You chose power over your God. And that's bad. That's bad. On the day of judgment, that's going to be bad. It says judge not lest you be judged. And that's why I'm very careful, because God will be the one that judges. But situations like this, and knowing that if you to choose power and money over your fellow human beings, I mean, it's also a warning to me. That's not what I'm supposed to be. Okay, that's why I examine my conscience. As Catholics, we examine our consciences usually in the morning and in the evening. And if we need to, we will go to confession individually. Oh my gosh, my cat. Maybe my cat is possessed by the devil. Demons, unlimited power. Yes, Sultan Afim, unlimited power. And that is what is really evil. You see what I'm saying? That's, if you're the devil, you want people to go be seduced by that. And exorcism doesn't really serve that purpose, except maybe to show off. And I think that that's why exorcisms do happen. He like the devil can't resist. Can't resist. Some individuals I know that might have been in those situations will say that not only it's like there's so much hatred that will spew forth for Jesus, for God, for the church, for the priesthood, and priests act in persona Christi. Priests aren't good because of who they are. They're priests. They're because of the sacrament. And Blessed Virgin Mary, the most blasphemous, horrible things to say about her. Have you noticed that a lot of these lawless people that are really hate-filled, there's been these desecrations of the Blessed Virgin Mary that are just, oh my gosh. And a lot of radical pro-abortion people will do it. And in my experience of being a Catholic, it happens a lot, but we don't make a fuss about it. And that's what just kills me sometimes, because we turn the other cheek. They're not the other people, they're not playing the same rules. I was like, Father, we should call the police. We should do this and that. And he's like, well, we've reported it, but doesn't, went to Mass one day and Blessed Mother was desecrated. The statue, rather. She wasn't. She was fine. She's fine. The Eucharist. Oh, that is also don't even get me started on the horrible things that happened to them. Wow, I heard the word that little meow. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, see, the devil possessed my cat because it doesn't want me to talk about this. Okay, a morning chat bringing the brimstone. I see. Yes, hellfire and brimstone. I did a sin once. I lust after nun in Spain. My mistake. Was it lust or desire though? Was it one of those nuns that doesn't wear her habit? Then it was her own fault. Gosh, sisters and nuns who don't wear their habits are lame. And I will say this: usually, you can tell the most obnoxious bad nuns, bad sisters by whether or not they're wearing a habit. For the most part, sisters and nuns that tend to wear their habit tend to be darn good. And the ones that are wearing their habits are growing by leaps and bounds. I wonder why. Okay, you tell someone, give up money, sex, and your obedience. But we want you to just be like everybody else. And you're like, well, I could just be like everyone else and not become a nun or a sister. Or you go to ones that's like, hey, do all these things and get the community, all these cool things, and we got this mission. You're gonna do it together. I mean, gosh, they are awesome. If you really meet some dynamic sisters, the Nashville Dominicans, Saint Cecilia, holy crud, are they awesome? When I was discerning my vocation, they're the ones that I went to because they're teachers and musicians. All right. So nuns, wear your habit. Sisters, wear your habits. Come on. Morning. Hello. A statue is not the mother. Nice to hear the sentiment. People forget that sometimes, says Stephen Ransom. Yeah. Well, it represents her. Yeah. Obviously. I mean, it's a hello. It even statues of Jesus, that's not Jesus. It's what it represents. Just like a picture of your loved one. You'll see people holding a picture of your loved one and looking at it. It's like, I love him, especially when someone's dead or something. Obviously, the picture is not the loved person. But yeah, when someone, say, tears up a picture of your loved one or burns it, like on those serial killer movies, it's a sentiment behind it. That's why they want to destroy it. Now, the Eucharist is a whole other ballgame and a whole other Catholicplaining. Magitech Mag says, I never understand the nuns that got rid of their habits. They stood out and respected because of it. Yes. Mm-hmm. And it's a uniform, for crying out loud. It's like the military. When you see the military in their uniform, it gives you an attitude. Okay. I want to make it clear, just because they're wearing a habit doesn't also necessarily mean they're good sisters. Because, boy, have I met some not very nice sisters who do wear the habit. Okay. But yes, and yes, people do respect it. People honor it. And the different colors of them will tell their vocation, right? So if you see the white with the very long rosary and the black veil, you're like, Dominican. I played Name That Habit when I was in Rome. And you see the brown, it's like, hey, that's St. Francis. Blue is usually Mary, mother of something. Carmelite's my girl. My girl Therese is a Carmelite. Brown full habit. But they're nuns. Okay, they're not sisters, so you won't see them walking around. There are Carmelite sisters in a slightly modified habit. Morning, Mags. Why, hello, everybody. Yes, everyone's saying good morning. You can't go to hell for converting a nun. It's her choice. It's a loophole thing. Hey. Yeah. Converting a nun. I think I know what you're saying. Oh, yeah. Well, actually, your theology is correct because it is your choice. Free will. Free will is very important in the Catholic Church. You did it. Slipping a little bit into why we rejected soli fideism so strongly when Martin Luther brought that forth. What you do is what you do. Another Catholicplaining. You did it. You cannot commit mortal sin and still go to heaven. First of all, that's not fair. And second of all, it's what we call legal fiction. But oh gosh, I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Chris Ant says, I went to Catholic schools one had nuns with the habit and the other had nuns that didn't. Ironically, the nuns who didn't wear it were the stricter teachers. Yeah, they're nice. They're adorable. They're so sweet. But yeah, they'll get on you. They'll get on you. They're good gals. Magic Meg says the sisters don't wear habits. I found in my experience they are the most feminist. Not all though. Yes, yes, yes. And they're ugly. I'll just say it. They're ugly. And they're unfeminine. Okay. Nuns in their habit, they look so, they're beautiful and they're not ugly and yucky. Not all, of course, not all. I know that there were some sisters, very good sisters, who were forced to take off their habits. In one case, this particular sister left her order, and it was very hard for her because back then, that was like a disgrace, and people didn't understand what was going on, that they were all losing their minds. She was able to find another order, thank God. You'll also find, let me rephrase that. I will eat my hat if you can find a nun or a sister in a habit that's openly supporting a certain political party here in the United States. Magic Macbeth says, yes, I found the nuns that do wear habits seem to be the most joyful, like a radiance shining from the inside. Yes, yes. And they're fun. They party. Yeah. They're good. They're fun to be around. They're fun to hang out with. Dang it. This makes me want to go hang out with some sisters and nuns. Yeah. When I say sisters and nuns, it's hard because often people just use nuns because it's easier. Nuns are the ones that are cloistered, so you won't see them out and about. They like never come out ever. They're cloistered away. Sisters are the ones that are active. Same thing with monks versus a friar. Monks are the ones that are cloistered. Friars are out and about. You'll see, like, for example, the Franciscan friars, because they're friars. That was the whole thing for St. Francis. The dudes in chartreuse are monks, sitting there making their liquor. They party. Yes, they do. Mm-hmm. And they party nice. I mean, we were, play games, like to craft. Good times. What came first, the habit or the habit of an etymology school? Yes. Well, if you look at the origin of the habit, it came from widowhood. The first religious in the church, way back, I mean, days St. Paul mentions it even in the New Testament, were widows. It's like, oh, these are rules for widows, because chicks whose husbands died, they were like, we want to serve Christ and start serving in community. Then that's how it developed. Widows had distinctive clothing, and from that distinctive clothing, we get the habit. You can see that explicitly in the case of St. Elizabeth Seton's order. She was a widow, and it happened when she was in Italy, so she wore the habit of, the widowed clothing and the widow cap that they use in Italy, and that became their habit when they became sisters. Magic Mags. Benedict in high school, I went to the sisters and didn't wear habits. I kind of wish I'd experienced a time when they wear habits. Yes, wouldn't that have been nice? Well, if you go hang out around the Dominican Sisters of St. Cecilia, they're awesome. I know a priest in a certain city and place. He went and hired sisters from there to staff his school, the school that he was in charge of, because they'll travel. Like the Mother House is in Nashville, and you'll see them around other places. And Dominicans are good for education for that reason. I went to, sorry, I can't type on Fontana, no worries. And what does it have to do with exorcism? Everything. Because guess who hates nuns? Guess who hates sisters? I just can't imagine. Who could it be? So that is why you will see blasphemy, loads of blasphemous things coming out during exorcisms for the Blessed Mother, for nuns, for sisters. And I don't think it's a coincidence that in popular culture, this so-called woke people that are trying to destroy everything that's sacred, whenever they portray religious, it is usually in a horrendous manner, or it will be they finally see the light and leave and be sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Why do you think that is? Why don't they like it? I just can't imagine. Yeah, I missed out on the whole Catholic school thing. I was too old when I joined the church, but I have taught in Catholic schools, and boy, do I have some stories. If you went to Catholic school, you probably know what I'm talking about, but I have the stories from behind the scenes. There are some of the best people you will ever see in your life teaching and working those schools, and the worst people you will ever see. I would rather hang out with a gang of Satanists than I would some of those people that are cloaking themselves in the church and infiltrating into our institutions. Because at least they're honest. Stephen says there is also the history of covering the hair, like Jewish Orthodox, and the practical history of covering your hair to keep it clean and tight. Yes. Yeah. And that's why you'll see the Orthodox and the Catholics, develop the same, because we came from the same cloth. We come from the same well. Sultan Fahim, do you think nuns should be allowed to get married? No. That defeats the that defeats the purpose. A nun that gets married is a lay woman, because technically, all lay people are supposed to live chastity, live poverty, reasonable poverty, and live reasonable obedience. And I say always have to put reasonable in. Yeah. Chastity is you only have sex with your spouse. If you're talking about priests, no. Oh, priests are allowed to get married. A lot of people don't know that, because that doesn't serve the purpose. I know a lot of married priests, and it's always been bad news. Should they be allowed? Should it be more open that married people can become priests? I say no. Could they? Yes, but talk to a woman that's married to a Latin Rite Roman Catholic priest, and she will tell you she is so in favor of celibacy. Goes back. Ransom is correct. Nuns are already married to the church and God. That is correct. I once had a priest say that too. The same priest that blessed my house. He goes, "I'm married to all of you," and of course we're like, polygamy, and he's like, "No, it's spiritual." Magic Mac says, "Oh yeah, I have loads of story of having gone to Catholic school, even Catholic college. Definitely experience." Yes. Well, think about it. Where you have, what was it that Jesus said? To whom much is given, much is expected. And when the darkness comes in, how dark will the darkness be? Whatever. That's why no one can sin like a fallen priest, a fallen sister, fallen Catholic, a fallen Christian, holy person, no matter what religion they are. Chrisanne says, "I always just got mad at religion classes." Oh, yes, I would be. Girl, don't get me started. Let me read the rest of your thing. Most of the time, it was so basic. I only realized when I got older and discovered just how little I knew about my religion. Yes, and yes. It is a disgrace how religion is taught in Catholic schools. Absolutely. Precisely. Amen and hallelujah. Ridiculous. I mean, I did some education, but I was not in the school. I did CCD. I wasn't qualified. One could argue maybe I was, but I've said before that I'm an amateur theologian. I never took any religious classes ever for Catholicism. I didn't even go through RCIA. You don't have to, by the way, if you are already a Christian. Don't do it. They call it repelling converts inadvertently. It's a disgrace. So I'd go in and I'd just be like, "Hey, there's this. And everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, that's really what's going on." That's why I like these Catholic explainings. I'm going to Catholic explain the Mass next. Or I might have to Catholic explain Pope Benedict's posthumous book first. It's absolutely ridiculous. That's why you got people like Scott Hahn that took the world by storm, because he was a Protestant preacher. He was a Presbyterian, and he became a Catholic. It's like, what the hell is wrong with everyone? And so he started giving talks and giving speeches, and it was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? And then the joke became that God started recruiting from the Protestants because the Catholics suck so bad. Yeah. I mean, my just Sunday school as a little girl, I won't say which denomination because that might give too much information about me away, was more dynamic than some of the stuff I've seen at the college level. Also, I went to Church of Ireland. That's not going to dox me because I was never a member of the Church of Ireland school, but that's the school I went to, because over there at the time, and I think it's still the case, there was no such thing as separating a public school from the church. The schools were with your local church, and we weren't Catholic, so we went to a Church of Ireland. That was close enough to our denomination. Got to head into work. Okay, hey, thank you for being here. Correct. Genevieve! Having the prayer of St. Michael is very important. It's very powerful. Asking for his help will allow him to do what needs to be done. Yes, yes, and yes. Genevieve, yes. Listen to this girl. She's awesome. If you don't follow her on Twitter, if one of my mods could put her Twitter up there, because she has lovely, lovely things that she makes. Also, videos about St. Michael the Archangel and St. John Vianney. Beautiful thing. Also about miracles of the Eucharist. Wait, do I not have a... All my mods are staying away. All right. Let's see. Chrysanthia around. So here we go. Get you. Yeah. There you go. Thank you. Yeah, the exorcists in Ireland, they told me that's what your job is. The rest is up to us. Oh my gosh, Cardinal Burke. If you don't know who Cardinal Burke is, he is an amazing... He was the Apostolic Signatura for Pope Benedict. And oh my gosh, guess who fired him? I don't want to sound unfaithful to my current Papa, but guess... I just gave it away. He told me once, because I was like, oh my gosh, there's this, and this. What do we do? And I was mad at him. I said, and you all don't seem to be doing anything either. And he just looked at me and goes, you said that this was your profession. You're a musician. I won't say my full profession, though I think I've given it away. I was like, yes. He says, that's what you're supposed to do. God's going to raise up other people to take care of this thing. He's going to raise up lawyers. I found out later that they were raising up lawyers. This was against the HHS mandate of Barack Obama. And we got amazing victories, like 9-0 victories. Even with all those liberals, they were like, this is unconstitutional. I got rebuked by the Apostolic Signatura. That means I'm awesome. Chrysanth, yes, I always felt like an idiot when it came to my Catholic faith. Yeah, that's sad. Well, see, that's why Catholic Answers is good. Tune into Catholic Answers on the Catholic radio. Also, well, I'm being careful about what I recommend. Scott Hahn, anything by Scott Hahn. Pints by Aquinas, he's a good YouTube channel. Yeah. And pay attention at Mass, because the Mass itself is an educator. Another confession thing. Nancy, you could have just gone to Mass, because when you start off in Mass, what are you doing? We confess our sins, because confessing a sin is actually one of the biggest things you can do against the devil. The sacrament of reconciliation is the best. That's the nuclear bomb. But we always do a group confession at every Mass, even a daily Mass. All right? Do it. And it's like a mini confession, and then the priest will say, may Almighty God have mercy on us, forgive us our sins, and bring us to everlasting life. Amen. Sorry, gotta say amen. Another example, The Godfather. Yes, The Godfather is actually an accurate portrayal of what happens in baptism. The difference is we now, as a congregation, tend to participate. Also, the Easter, we renew our baptism vows. So the priest will get up there and go, do you, as a group, we do this at least once a year, do you renounce Satan? the father of lies. I do reject Satan, all that. And I just always have to say, don't think of the Godfather. Don't think of the Godfather, because I'll, just focus on what he's saying. But that's also how we, as lay people, participate, and priests as well. Oh, Magitech Mix says, same. I only recently noticed when I started working with Muslims and Hindus who knew so much about their religion, I felt like a drooling imbecile compared to them. Yeah. Well, and that's why people hate converts. See, I'm a convert. And I'm such a know-it-all, it drives people crazy. And boy, was I an obnoxious know-it-all, because there's nothing worse than being a know-it-all and being 20 years old. And I was like, what's wrong with everyone? Why are you so stupid? Everyone hated my guts. It's like, and then you realize you got to tame it down. Some of it's been deliberate. They've been trying to water it down. You will have people teaching catechism that don't actually believe what it is. They're actually trying to change it. So that's why they don't teach you. We used to have the Baltimore Catechism. That was really good stuff. That's why the Catechism of the Catholic Church was so important. What Pope Benedict did, that revolutionized things. Also, the convert gang. Patrick Madrid, he is a cradle. You'll see his stuff around. He wrote a great book called Pope Fiction. I loved it. Yeah, he's a cradle. So is Karl. I almost said Karl Marx, not him. Yeah. Then there's the reverts. Reverts are always awesome too. They're the people that maybe join another religion or just drop out of Catholicism because going to Catholic school in many ways kills your faith. And then they read their way back in. That's why when people say they were raised Catholic, I get very suspicious. It's like, yeah, well then, yeah. Christian says, whenever I've been challenged on it, I always feel so stunted and look like I don't represent the faith. Well, it stinks. Oh, well, here's the thing, Magitech Mix, and I may or may not know about these. There's no shame in saying, I don't know, but I will find out and get back to you. Because the only time someone truly looks like an idiot is when they pretend they know and they don't. I ran into one like that on Twitter. But yeah, and that is actually something that is recommended by Catholic apologists nowadays. Just say you don't know. Say the truth. I don't know, but I'll get back to you. Never feel ashamed, because you know what? Unless you're God, you don't know the answer to everything. Take care. Yes, thank you. Thank you. The mods have been exercised. Genevieve said, I didn't do the Holy Eucharist video, but I did a video of Rosary for the CMRI convent. Oh, well, there you are. There you are. I could have sworn, though, that you did one on one of the Eucharistic miracles. But correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you. Didn't expect this. Oh, well, you won. I needed a mod, and I don't have a co-pilot today. My co-pilot is asleep, and he's also an atheist. So nothing against that. Hey, I'd give me an atheist any day over a fake Catholic, because atheists tend to be honest. Atheist agnostic. He's open about it, so I'm not outing him. Videos. Okay, don't tame your dragon, Teresa. Are you talking about my cat? She thinks she's a dragon. Oh, I definitely didn't know. Laugh out loud. Good point. I definitely don't. Yeah. That's just the thing. Unless you're brilliant, there's things about the church I really know and really know well. One of them is history, because I'm a historian. The reason I became a Catholic was because I studied history. It's like, oops. I didn't know that. Because when you really start studying history, I was studying, what was it, medieval studies and Renaissance Reformation studies. And for the first time, I got the other side. Because it was all like, and then Martin Luther did that. Hey, no hate against Lutherans. But what we didn't get was, and then the Catholic theologian said, well, yeah, that's not a bad idea about the corruption, but this whole sola fideism thing, this is the problem we have with it. And I went, that's a darn good that's a darn good answer to that. That was the part that was always left out. Christian, subscribe. Yay! Subscribe to Genevieve. Genevieve's lovely. I met her during our Once Upon a Fan days, back in Once Upon a Fan, and I used to publish many of her things. She is a lovely soul. too good for the planet. And why I say I'm a practicing Catholic if at first you don't succeed, etc. That's a good one. Yes. Well, and there's a humility in that. Okay. I find that people that aren't practicing Catholics are the ones that are the most smug. Well, I was raised Catholic. I know everything, and it sucks. And then you're like, okay, tell me the definition of the magisterium, because if you leave the church and don't even know what the magisterium is, then what the hell? Well, and there are things that obviously other people know better. Father Miller and Father Sinatra, I've been often on their on Father Miller's. They really know a lot about the priesthood. Gee, I wonder why. They're living it. So they can tell you things that I would not be able to. I can say it intellectually. But also, we have a treasure trove, not just the Holy Scriptures, but the history that goes all the way back to the first Christians. You see, I didn't even know that. I believed the fiction that, oh, then all the Christians disappeared and they came back in the 15th century or something. I was like, what? It's like, no, they were these so-called made-up doctrines that were always there from the beginning. But it's beautiful. Saints that particularly spoke to me, though, were Saint Teresa of Avila, which is why I spell my name the way I do. I've gotten called out that I should, when I spell it with Teresa, I should go Teresa. I understand. Long story about my pen name, Teresa Martin, Therese of Lisieux, who is my other gal, Saint Therese of Lisieux, and the little flower, her shower of roses. I have such a great devotion to her. She was amazing. She was a Carmelite nun. Read her stuff. It will blow your mind. Your head will explode. Then you've got people like Teresa of Avila, for whom Therese of Lisieux was named for. She was more intellectual and brilliant. I mean, that woman wrote 500 million thousand books. She was a great Catholic reformer in Spain. And then she converted Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, Edith Stein, who died at Auschwitz. And just brilliant minds. I don't know if she will be a doctor of the church, but Therese of Lisieux and Teresa of Avila are doctors of the church. They're giants. Their theology is so solid, it'll blow you away. And it'll also give truth to the lie that the church doesn't respect women. Really? Doesn't respect women by their definition. Genevieve, I'm finally going to save those rosary videos. Yes. Oh gosh, you see, she's such a good soul. Teresa is confirmed. Yes. You know what? I should probably. It would be cruel. I say, okay, I'm going to have a face reveal, and I show the little flower. That would be really lame. Yeah. I'm not French. But I have been to Lisieux several times because she's my gal. My gal. One of these I will do. One of these days I'll do Teresa Travels to Lisieux. Genevieve says, devils hate humility. They're all about pride, power, greed, you name it. Yes. And so, see, that's why that's more powerful than an exorcism. At the beginning of this, I went through all the details of what an exorcism is. And most priests will say, there's a reason why we don't make a big fuss about it. First of all, reasons. Second of all, it's not that important. Big deal. It's like, some idiot that likes to show off. That's what the devil's doing with exorcism. Like, look at me. I can sit and kick the football. Yay, me. And then he goes to make a goal and misses. That's the devil with an exorcism. And meanwhile, you got, Pele going around going, oh, yeah, whatever. Ignoring the idiot. Teresa is a pretty name. Yes, it is. Yeah, thank you. Gosh, I love her. But yeah, it's Spanish, Teresa. Technically, I guess I should be spelling my name TH. That's what we do in English because I anglicized for Teresa Martin, but too late now. And I really love Teresa of Avila. Oh, you're welcome, Chrysanth. Yes, he is. Aren't people nice? Magic Mac says the church has a long history of BA, feminine, strong women. Yes, modernists are personally gaslighting when talking about the church supposedly personally. Yes, 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 and yes. You know who were the ones that wanted to educate women? You know who the ones that did educate women, that women doctors, all that? You know who started hospitals? You know who did all of that? Oh, it was the Catholic Church. Really? Yes. Now, look at St. Thomas More. That man. Okay, he's one of my favorite saints too. And I will go into all the details about him. That stupid, whatever Hall version of it is bull crap. And I will call it bull crap. They deliberately twist everything and even leave out details. They'll start quoting from the actual trial of St. Thomas More or between him and Cromwell and all that. And then just boom, just make up crap and to make Thomas More look like an idiot. Thomas More was not an idiot. He was brilliant. Now, the women were not allowed at university. And he and people like Erasmus and all that were really for true progressivism. They wanted women should be educated just as much. But because his daughter, who was brilliant, Margaret, could not because she was a woman, his son could go. So he just went and he had the money, brought in the professors to give his daughter the same education that his son got. And eventually, yeah. Saint Xavier. Oh, Dread Saberfell. Saint Xavier is somehow my ancestor. Oh my gosh, must have been his wild days in Paris or his brother. Yeah, probably his brother. But you know, priests, they sometimes had some wild days before they became priests. They had conversions. That's why Saint Michael is very powerful because of humility. Yes, who is like God? Right? That's his slogan. Who is like God? In other words, nobody. You know, sitting there stomping them. Who's like God? Who's like God? Awesome. Love St. Thomas More. Yes, Man for All Seasons is a great movie. Also, The Tudors. That's one of the best parts about The Tudors. They do, I think, a very solid job with him in The Tudors if you just skip through all the nonsense. Also, St. John Fisher. Teresa sounds like a character from Arthurian story legends. Who, me or St. Teresa of Avila? Oh, gosh. Yeah. I'll say this. Teresa of Avila probably would have scared the crap out of me. She was a strong personality. Very strong personality. And some of the things that happened during, well, let's just say in the 16th century in England and 17th century really put women back. I lose my SH dash whenever people talk about how great Queen Elizabeth I was. Let me leave it at that. St. Michael, says Magic Mags, is another favorite saint of mine when I feel like I need extra guidance in dealing with the world. Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah. See, I got some things here. I got my girl Therese. I got Our Lady Guadalupe. Our Lady Guadalupe is a great devotion, and that's also why the abortion people like to go and desecrate, especially Our Lady Guadalupe, because she is this patron saint of pro-life, and she is the only real image that we have that has the Blessed Mother pregnant. Okay. So they hate her guts. I like Joan of Arc too. Oh my gosh, Joan of Arc is awesome. Love that girl. You know how they're trying to smear her as well, of course. Who says Queen Elizabeth was good? You see, this is the divide. Having been raised on the other side of the Tiber, yeah. And you're looking at the history books that say it was a golden age. There was a relative in my family, a teenager at the time. It's like, but she was great, wasn't she? And my sister goes, ask the Irish. Hi, everyone. Well, Biggles. Hi, Biggles. Speaking of the devil. No. Yeah. I like that this conversation is happening. And to say that this is not relevant to exorcism, no, it's relevant. It's relevant. Because we're talking about spiritual warfare, good and evil. I have some really cool paraphernalia from the little flower that I got at Lisieux, and they're all in French. I got her poetry in French. Her poetry is so much cooler in French. Even though I barely speak French, you can tell it's better. And it just reminds me that everything I've read of this lady is a translation. Gosh, if I was really fluent in French, because the whole "I will spend my heaven doing good on earth, I will come back." That's all over the place at her basilica, and it's in French, and you can just look at it and tell that's better in French. Her parents were also saints, and what I love about it is his parents, Louis and Zélie Martin. Zélie tragically died of breast cancer very young, which really affected her. And her father spent some time in a mental asylum. He lost his crap. He has been posthumously diagnosed, probably some form of bipolar disorder. And the fact that John Paul II still canonized him is great for mental health, telling you that, listen, mental health is just like any other illness. Okay, it's not a sin. Sometimes people say, well, if you're sad or bipolar and all that, well, that means God doesn't love you. Some even used to say it was the devil. It's like, no, there's no sin in that. Another great saint for depression he's a patron saint of depression. Saint Benedict not Laboure. That's Saint Catherine Laboure. Saint Benedict, who's not the big Saint Benedict. He definitely was bipolar. And he was immediately, even in the 16th century, recognized as a saint. Yeah, isn't St. John of Arc now buying? Yes. I think it's a stage play. Yes. Of course. That's the only reason. Or maybe she dressed up like a man rather in pants and cut her hair, because when you're in battle, you don't want to have long flowing skirts and hair flying everywhere. Mickles met, wow, I'm pretty bad Catholic, but I'm not that bad. Well, we'll convert you, Biggles. Magitech Matt says, as a quarter Irish myself, Queen Elizabeth was not good. Yes. Well, here's the thing. She killed more people than Hitler when you adjust for population. All right? I mean, what she did to the English, well, not just her, all of them. The English Catholics, the Irish Catholics, okay, maybe Hitler's a little strong word, but I'm talking nothing. We remember Bloody Mary. Now, Queen Mary was not a great gal. Okay, what she did was wrong. All right, we all know that. But her numbers was like 200. Elizabeth was in the 100,000s, but no one remembers. That just tells you about the Winners' Right history. You'll mind your own business and you'll go over to Ireland. One of these days, I'm going to do a Teresa Travels in Ireland. We're all going to meet in Dublin. All right. I'm going to take y'all around. All the cathedrals, St. Patrick, St. Bridget, St. Finbar, all those things. You'll go and it's like, where's Mass? It's like, I had to tell someone once, if you want Mass, you don't go there. You go there. And because they were taken over during that time, and not just that, but of course, when the Catholic faith was outlawed. Catholic emancipation happened in 1830. That's why you'll see in Ireland, a lot of Catholic churches will have that date. Okay. Because that was when they were allowed to have churches again. I'm having cat issues, and she is now standing in front of the mute button, so it might get ugly. Okay, I'm going to move her. Right. Isn't that just a tomboy? Yeah. Well, she felt called by God. She got called by St. Michael the Archangel. Wasn't that St. Michael the Archangel? And I think it was Catherine of Siena. Killed a lot of people. Sounds awesome. Oh, shut up, Biggles. You know what? No, don't shut up. I'm going to get my revenge over you I'm going to take you to West Cork and have you say that in the town square. It's called Survivor. Yep, winners make their own history, even if it isn't true. Yes, Kitty. Yes, fight that Kitty. Well, I muted her. I mean, she is a noisy kitty. But hey, I didn't know you are Catholic. What are you doing staying in the closet? Yeah, we need to get together and do some Catholic spending together or something. Is that St. Michael? Oh, wait. Yeah, I've already talked about St. Michael the Archangel. Let's see. Some people put God in a small box, says Genevieve. You really can't do that. God is much bigger than that. Yes. Mm-hmm. Chrysanth, I heard of Putty Cat. Did I hear of it? Yes, you heard of Putty Cat. Yeah, my cat has issues. Dread Saber Phil, I'm glad that cat was yours. When Rascal does that, I need antibiotics. Yeah, pet that cat for me. Okay, I'll pet her. Because that's really what she wants. Yeah. She's getting really old, and I suspect maybe might be getting a bit of kitty cat dementia. Sometimes she'll get like lost, and I'll have to, you know, I don't know. She's just really, really old. So yes, I just pet her. She's sweet. She's sitting on a little pillow next to me. It's cold right now. We're actually under a winter storm warning. And so she was trying to sit on the computer because it's warm, but she's in the warmest place in the house. I have Icelandic blankets, for crying out loud. Okay, I did pet the cat. So to sum up, Nancy Pelosi did not have an exorcism. The priest in the diocese were like, there was not an exorcism. Shut up. I do love the fact that that poor priest, that parish priest, was so adamant because he knew, I got to say something fast because I'm going to get that call from the archbishop. What the hell are you doing? You went and did an exorcism of a house? And he even said that there wasn't even a prayer. Yeah. Let's see. Older kitties start to get needy. Mine is starting to get that way. Yeah. Yeah. And the reason why I think she might have kitty cat Alzheimer's is, again, because when she gets lost, either that her eyesight or something's off. And it's just the way it is. They say there's different things you can do to make them feel better, like to keep them in familiar surroundings, just like a human. She's my baby. They need to do that on Nancy, not the house. Yeah. Well, we've already talked about that because the whole exorcism thing. Yeah. I don't think she's possessed. But it's very convenient to blame the gay on on the devil instead of taking responsibility for your actions. Oh, the devil made me do it. Yes. Yeah. Whatever. Devil didn't make you do jack. Got to keep my eyes open. Okay, I got plenty of time because of Pilates. Unless it's going to be canceled. My gosh, let me look. See if Pilates is still going because of the weather. This might be the last Pilates I go to in a while, though. It's very sad. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, he was pretty adamant. At most, there was a blessing, if even. And probably that is exactly what happened. And they're so uncatechized. They don't know that it's not an exorcism, which is ridiculous. Well, someone didn't know any better. Like someone totally ignorant and saw a bunch of us praying to St. Michael the Archangel, they might think that we're actually performing some form of exorcism. The only thing is, these people are supposed to be practicing good Catholics. And they're just causing scandal. That exorcisms are done only after extensive research and testing, and done by outside sources, not Catholic psychiatrists. And if in any way there is any human possibility to explain explain the behavior, exorcism is immediately ruled out. So let me see here. I'm trying to see. When I went to, it was called FODA. Was it FODA 4 or is it FODA 6? Let me see. It in Ireland, in Cork City, every year there's something called FODA, which is in what's the name of the hotel? The Clarion Hotel in Cork City, led by Cardinal Burke, and all the great theologians show up and talk about things. See, which one was this? The 6th FODA conference. That was 2014. So I think it was photo 8 where they did the exorcism one. It was just looking at the rite. So I kept all my notes. It was fascinating, but technical. A lot of stuff about this is the psalm we use, and this is why we use verse 3 and 4 of this, etc. And not that. There's been some controversy about the updating of it as well as the translation, which is why it's always better to do do it in Latin. Do everything in Latin because then it's universal and we don't have to worry about translations. I am really big in favor of the use of Latin for the ordinaries in Mass because that way everyone can participate. You don't have to segregate people out. Like my local parish, they'll have Spanish Mass at this time, other Mass at this time. And like, if we were doing the Latin, we could all do it together, though we wouldn't maybe necessarily understand the homily, but get over it. I think it's very important for unity. And if you go to Rome, that's what they'll do. They'll do it in Latin because there's so many different nationalities. That's how you all can participate together, which is why I find it very ironic that Francis was so against the Latin Mass for some reason, though we're the Latin rite of the church. Yet over Christmas, he said in his Mass in Latin, like, yes, that's why we want it. If nothing pulled the trigger but the devil's right hand, you don't want to know about the left hand. Oh, okay, it's an expression. Okay, Genevieve says, with prayers, you have to have the love of God in it. If you don't have it, then it's empty. That is correct. That is useless repetition. Mr. Brown Alliance is here. Thank you for being here. We're talking about, we're Catholicplaining Exorcism. We've already gone through the Catholicplaining of Exorcism, as well as why Nancy was wrong about everything. Okay, here it is. Here's the one that I went to. What was it called? It was called please announce for the photo internet had in Cork, Ireland 2000. The Roman ritual de Roman Rituale de Benedictionibus and the rite of exorcism. So that's what I had gone to. It was fun. Cardinal Burke was presiding. Good guys. There was a bunch of exorcists at that one from England. They popped over, a few from Ireland. A bunch of Germans were there, but they're always there. They're good guys. They weren't necessarily exorcists, but priests that weren't exorcists were also in on it. And of course, I was a lay person, just kind of chilling and watching and learning. It was fun. Love Cardinal Burke. They always have a big pontifical mass there at St. Peter and Paul Church right off St. Patrick Street. Though I've started cheating when I go to that conference because I like to go to Mass in Irish. And of course, I don't have the opportunity very often. I always go to the Mass before it so I can have Mass in Irish. It's fun. My old church, says Chris Ant, would do Latin chants and my new church doesn't. I miss chanting. Yeah, chanting's good. And there is a reason why people can sing chant so much better. You go to a congregation where they use chant and everyone's like, blah, 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 and the church is ringing off the roof. And it doesn't have to be in Latin either. It can be in English, even English chant. And then you get some dumbass sitting up there with, here's my guitar, let's sing this. And the ordinaries, the music is so bad. It's the wrong key. It has all these jumps. It'll end on like the subdominant and no one's singing. It's like, yes, that sucks, but everyone can do chant. There's usually 5 notes. People that are not really trained singers can feel comfortable singing within a 5-note range. I am a trained singer and I have trouble singing some of that crap that they now call music Mass in the ordinary form. Ridiculous. Chant is awesome. I can read Gregorian chant in the original notation. It's been a while though. Been a while since I've done that. Chant is generally written for the male voice. It works with the female voice for the ordinaries when there's a bunch of women doing it together. And in those cases, when there aren't men who can do it properly, or if you're like in a convent, the chicks will all do it. But the chant that's meant for the congregation blends very well together. Luffy's God. Luther translated the Bible from Latin to give God to the masses, and now Teresa wants to translate it back. Ironic. Aha! Not true. Luther did translate the Bible into German to quote unquote give God to the masses, but guess what? Guess who also had been translating the Bible into the vernacular hundreds of years before him? The Catholic Church. There were English translations of the Bible. There were German translations of the Bible. There were vernacular, but Latin was preferred for several reasons. One, it was the universal language. Two, it was, if you read back then, you read Latin. That's all there is to it. Literacy was not really there. Okay. That's why you see so many stained glass windows. You see things like the rosary, where that's how illiterate people would pray the Psalms, right? The problem with the translation that Luther did is he had some, well, first of all, he was already outside the church. And the church even today has very strict regulations for translation into the vernacular because it needs to be accurate. He deliberately changed certain things, and he took certain things out to fit sola fideism. For example, the whole faith alone. Faith alone is never in the Bible. The only time faith alone is in the Bible is we are not justified by faith alone. In Romans, though, when it says we are justified by faith, he changed it to we are justified by faith only, faith alone, allein durch den Glauben. That's the kind of stuff that we had a problem with. The Bible was always available to the masses. If you could read, you could. It was available in English. You can Google that. Got to get a little fussy, but I don't want to quite blame you, because that's what I was taught too. And I had to deprogram my brain. Okay. If you read Latin, period. Most people didn't read. Also, the invention of the printing press changed the way people viewed books. But yeah, there was stuff in English. I heard the St. Michael chant reminded me of a lullaby. I miss the organ sound. There's a reason why the organ is good for singing. And the reason why Protestants can sing so well, or rather they used to, I've heard they've started throwing out the baby with the bathwater. The organ is a wind instrument, believe it or not. It's not a percussion instrument, say like the piano. And it physically, like with physics and all that kind of stuff, supports the human voice. Mm-hmm. The way it works. I'm trying to get a place to live so I can live closer to a church that does a better mass and has an organ. Yeah. That's hard. Oh, Luffy, yeah, you're just trolling. Luther made it better. Well, if he made it better, then why did the Protestants throw back in all the books that he took out? He didn't like James. He didn't like the book of Revelation, all that stuff. But yeah, touche. Thank you. But yeah, I know it. And I know German. I can read German better. And I was like, these Catholics are lying to me. I've never heard this. So I marked from it. I went the Luther translation. This was when I was in college. Looked it up. Boom. It was there. You know, there's a reason for it. And sometimes people get really upset when I knock Luther a bit. And I do. I've got some real issues with that man. I'm not knocking Lutherans, though, because most Lutherans don't hold to the kind of stuff he did either. There's a reason why the real religious wars that broke out so intensely were not between the Catholics and the Protestants. It was between the Protestants and the Protestants. And Luther said by the end of his life, I wanted to get rid of one pope. I created 50. I still can't read. Well, that's true. Yes, we know about that. We'll pray for you, Biggles. The St. Coleman Society for the Liturgy. And let me see. The subject of the conference. Okay. And also what's cool is the Lassus scholars, they sing during those masses. So you will get some darn good music. Epiphany is good as well. Off the top of my head, in my locality, I can't really think of a place that really does Catholic music right, except for where they have the extraordinary form of the Mass. That's where you'll have to find it. But it's ridiculous because there's nothing stopping the ordinary form from having the same thing. We have the greatest music ever written, okay? We have friggin' Beethoven, Mozart, the masters writing our hymns, our music, our ordinaries. And we tossed it out the window like a bunch of idiots. It's a crime, I tell you. The 60s suck. My parents' generation sucked. Maybe I'll do a Catholicplaining on church music. I'll be getting into it a little bit when I do my video on the solfeggio from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Because Guido d'Arezzo was the one who developed that. He was a monk. 60s ruined everything. Yes, they did. Vatican II. Okay, I don't like... I like to say sometimes Vatican II ruined everything. Vatican II didn't ruin everything. Nothing wrong with Vatican II. It was the idiots in charge of implementing Vatican II that lied. If we'd have had the internet during Vatican II, a lot of this crap wouldn't have happened. And that's what made Benedict XVI such a great pope. He started to correct a lot of those problems, like giving us the proper English translation of the Mass. See, that's another reason why you don't want it in the vernacular. They pulled a friggin' Luther, especially in America when they translated the Mass into English. Well, you know, Domine nosum dignus et intressit tectum meum sed tantum dic verba et senabitur anima mea. That's friggin' awesome. They translated that in English to, Lord, I'm not worthy to receive you, but only say the word and I will be healed. What the heck? That's not what it said. It was gorgeous in the Latin. And then Pope Benedict's like, translate it accurately, you dumbasses. And they did. That's why now we have, Lord, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof, but only say the word and my soul shall be healed. Dominus vobiscum et cum spiritu tuo. That does not translate, and also with you. And when the priest would say, Ecce agnus Dei, ecce qui tollis peccatum mundi, I can't say the next part because it's too long in Latin and I don't have to say it, so I don't remember it. But this is the Lamb. No, behold the Lamb of God. Behold him who takes away the sins of the world. How blessed are those who are called to the supper of the Lamb. Holy moly, that's intense and straight from the book of Revelation. What did those idiots in the 70s translate it to? This is the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. Happy are those called to his supper. Nothing wrong with it, but oh my gosh, what's better? Yes, do it, Teresa. Yes, I will. Take care, Biggles. Oh, Biggles leaving us. Did I scare him off? No, we exorcised you. All right. Take care, Biggles. Yeah, people are nice. I don't know what to do over there, but we sing a lot of Latin in choir in church here. Cantate, cantate. Well, good for you. Dude, you're in you're in Norway? You know what? I bet you, if you're Catholic, is it Catholic over there in Norway, or is it the church? No, that's the Church of Iceland. Whatever the state, the Lutheran based one. Because first of all, if it's Catholic, that is a miracle, and if it's not, well, yeah, I think it's ironic that the Protestants appreciate that stuff better than we do, which is absurd. Nice, cantate Domine. Hey, Luffy. The 60s was an awful definition of sexual liberation, too. I will put sexual, quote-unquote, liberation. It was sectional imprisoning. Chris Ann says, my brother and my sister, my gosh, can I read? I blame it on the winter storm. My parents and I are going over a different version of Acts of Contrition, and one of my parents' version is better than the one I learned. Or are you talking about the way Confortior de Omnipotenti? No, wait, that's the one that's like, therefore I ask St. John the Baptist, St. Joseph, and all those guys that it went on forever. Yes. I don't have that in the top of my head. I still have the Latin version of the ordinary form. I go a lot to ordinary form in Latin. It's fun. Extraordinary form, part of the problem is it's during when I play Dungeons and Dragons. Psychoanalyze that, everybody. Yes. Well, the new translation did it better. We got to have the mea culpa, mea maxima culpa back. And if you do it right, you have to thump your chest. It's awesome. Genevieve says there's a Latin prayer cards that has Latin and English, even how to pronounce some of the words. Yeah, and see, that's the other thing. It was like no one could understand it because it was in Latin. So I'm looking at those old prayer books before Vatican II, and I'm like, you mean the English right here next to it? Speaking of unity, because often in the extraordinary form, the congregation does not participate in it. And so you follow along, and it's actually very beautiful. Well, okay, that's the wrong word. We do participate, but not necessarily with our mouths. It's very quiet. If you go to a low mass, beautiful, very beautiful. There's also low dialogue masses in the extraordinary form, which are fun, but everyone can participate. At a parish I had up north, they would have it in Latin on one side, English on the other. And then there's another book over here, Latin on one side, Spanish on the other, Latin on one side, French on the other, because there were a lot of people coming over from Africa where French was their first language. And I'm like, that is bringing us all together. We didn't all have to go to separate masses, right? Luffy, Luther Catholic. Haha. Oh, you know what? That's okay. That's okay, because I suspected that was the case. And I have a great deal of respect for that. I think High Lutheran is probably the wrong word because I'm thinking of High Anglican, but it's probably the equivalent. My grandfather, that was his church, and they were more Catholic than Catholics were, if that makes sense. Beautiful. Same thing with Anglicans. See that stuff with the Queen? That looks more Catholic than what you'll find in a lot of Catholic churches. Yeah, beautiful. And more power to you. Like I said, I used to be a Protestant, and I've got no problems with at all with those that are very serious about their faith that are Protestants and those that are very serious about their faith that are Catholics. We have more in common than the fake ones in our religions, to misquote C.S. Lewis. Kristen said, I learned, my God, I'm with my sins for all my heart. It just seems so rushed to me. Oh, yeah, that was the way it was. And then, thank goodness, Benedict helped us out. But the full one's better. I've got my extraordinary form Latin missal, but it's downstairs. I need to go. Say, suck it, Steve. I'm going to Latin mass. No, I won't. When I have a commitment, I keep it unless something's up. Dread Saber Phil says D&D is a good allegory, like in the Bible, where a guy gets hacked up, hack up your sins, hack up demons. There you go. You see, you can connect all of it. Gosh, this is making me nostalgic. I have my Latin mass at ordinary form in front of me. But man, Benedict cleaned house, didn't he? Man, he was firing cardinals and stuff and throwing them in jail left and right. He was outing everybody. And that's why some of this posthumous book, I cannot wait. It cannot get in my hands fast enough. Everyone is furiously translating it from the Italian. I'm just going to wait till it's in English. We have our first whistleblower pope, kids. He was a great pope. In many ways, maybe greater than John Paul II. Oh boy. I said it. I was very disappointed when he resigned. But it looks like we're getting more insight into why he resigned. And I know why he wanted it to be posthumous. Mentatech Mix says, gotta go. Thank you for all these Catholicplaining, Teresa. Have a good one, y'all. Yeah, so thank you. Yes, for these. Yes, I love Catholicplaining. Yeah, and for those of you coming in, we already did go through the Catholicplaining of exorcism, what it is, what it isn't, and that it definitely was not Nancy Pelosi. I'm getting so convicted during this stream. I need to go to confession. It's been a while since I've been. It's been a while. And you kind of need to. You need to get it all off your chest. And I love it because it's a captive audience. The priest can't throw you out. He has to listen to what you have to say. Yeah, take care. Hello, Mag. Zach, everyone's saying hi. Yeah, we had fun. C.S. Lewis, Lion Witch of the Wardrobe. Yeah, I love me some C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis was what we would probably call a high Anglican, dogmatically completely in line with most of what the church teaches. He had some issues with, I believe some of the jurisdiction of the papacy, and I think Immaculate Conception he had an issue with. But beyond that, he was right there with us. He was the one who convinced me about purgatory, because I was like, purgatory, what's this? And I read, he believed in purgatory because it's biblical. Purgatory is biblical. Good guy. Love me some C.S. Lewis. Take care. Yes, Genevieve, of course. Our swan. I always write my confessions down because I get in a confession, my mind goes blank. Yeah, and then you feel like an idiot. When that happens, though, what I'd say is, for these and all my past sins, I am truly sorry. Also, I like to cover my butt. And also, and like I said, you don't want to feel like a dork. I am conscious, though, when I know there's a line out there, and there is usually a huge line where I live. So you don't want to be that jerk who takes up your time. If you want to have some really intense counseling, confession thing and all that, make an appointment, because that's only fair to the people waiting in line, in my humble opinion. And also think of the poor priest, because often it's before Mass, so they need to go get ready. It's just the only nice thing to do. And you can also get spiritual direction without confession. You just need to talk about things like, got issues. I hate my cat. I don't know. No, I don't hate my cat. I love my cat. She's my baby. So again, what questions do you have about exorcism? Got any more? And I don't know if I'm going to be getting over to Ireland. There's reasons why. But I want to get over there. I've talked with Jay publicly, so it's not secret. It's like, dude, let's meet in Ireland, and I can show you around, because you need someone who knows where to show you the real Ireland, and you need a driver. If you can't hire a driver, if you can't have a driver, hire a driver. You can pool in. You can drive yourself, but it's dangerous. It's dangerous because if you're not used to driving in Ireland, and especially if you're not used to driving a stick, and if you have to drive a stick, you have to drive the stick backwards. My sister can do it. So whenever I go, if I can ever convince her to go, sometimes we'll be like, we'll pay for your ticket, you just drive us, because she can drive. My father can too, but he's too old now. If not, just hire it. There are a lot of fatal accidents in Ireland. Americans getting, tourists getting killed, but also Native people. It's not fair to them. Looking at you, Matthew Broderick. Part of the reason I wasn't able to go, because I've been working on my master's, which I may never get, because I still have to go through the oral examination. I'm not ready. I've had other things, so I want to get back there. I also want to do some Irish immersion. Go to the Gaeltacht and try to remember the language. Well, okay, if you don't have any more questions about exorcism, again, if you're popping in, go to the beginning where I do go through the details of it. It's not as exciting as you think it is. It really isn't. It's very boring. First of all, the devil's boring because he sucks, but it's just not a big deal. And you don't have to believe that an exorcism happens. But as we said, you do have to believe in principle because it is in divine revelation. Genevieve has to go. Remember, you are not alone, even if you are. You've got angels that are willing to help if you ask, especially St. Michael the Archangel. That is beautiful, Genevieve. Gosh, you are a beautiful soul. Thank you. Thank you for that. And pray to your guardian angel. You got one. You may as well use him. Come on, he's right, just sitting there waiting on you. You know, St. Michael the Archangel, St. Gabriel, St. Raphael. He's a good one. They're the ones that are named the archangels, but they're all there. He will send his angels to guide you. And pay attention with Mass, especially when they use the first canon, Canon 1. And it says, may the angels take this sacrifice up to you in heaven. So beautiful. Everyone's saying goodbye. Yeah, well, Chris Anthony, you know that this is. I'm going to have to go and stop because I think I need to become a prepper. I think that this storm is going to be kind of bad. They're talking about frozen rain, which might make me stick here inside. Don't want to do that without some supplies. Got Pilates, though. So I've got to go to Pilates. I've missed Pilates. I was gone in Florida. That's the other thing. I have to go back and forth. I don't have to, but I want to because that's just what you do. So I got to get my Pilates stuff ready and then go prep. Good soup weather. Yes. Good soup, stews. Maybe I'll get some lamb stew. Wouldn't that be good? Oh my gosh, that's making me hungry. Well, you heard it here first. Luckily, there's a Walmart like right across the street, so I can just walk over there. So, once again, I enjoyed Catholicplaining with you all. Chrisanne, thank you for being here. Genevieve, Magitech, Max, great to see you. Zax, Biggles, Luther. I mean, Luther is God. Luffy is God. Yeah, no, that's great. Hey, I think it's great you're going to church. That's good stuff. And I think it's great. I don't want to say too much about Norway, but yes, no one wants to dox people. Dread Saber Phil, thank you. Said Genevieve. Who else popped in? I'm going to catch everyone. And as always, if you don't get to me, I'm sorry. If I don't get to you, it's nothing personal. I just don't see you as I'm going back through. Mr. Brown Alliance has been here. And we had quite a crowd. Everyone wants to know about exorcism. My original thumbnail was going to be with Nancy Pelosi looking really ugly in like exorcism. But then I thought, that's not very charitable. That's not nice. Oh, Stephen Ransom was here. Hello, Stephen Ransom. Thank you for being here. At Miss Martin Muses, Gravy D. So if I missed anyone, like I said, oh, excuse me, my nose is all stuffed up. Give me a second. I got to blow my nose. Yeah, I did one of those things where I'm just a mess. That's just all there is to it. But thank you for being here. Have a great day, everyone. Have a great day. And be certain to not confuse exorcism with a prayer.